Hello there.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of Jedi Nights. I'm your moderator, Christian Buckley. Joining me once again is Mike Connors.
Thank you for having me, as always.
I'm excited to be back.
Yeah.
This is a schedule now.
It's a schedule. It's happening, and there is end in sight. But
there's nothing you can do to stop it.
there's nothing you can do to stop the train.
No, not at all.
Just like marketing for the Rise of Skywalker. You can't stop it.
Yeah, and we're actually going to touch on that in a little bit.
There you go.
So teases for the show. Making his Jedi Nights debut and his return to a podcast on Joy Clicks is the man on the mixer, Pat Maroney.
Hello. Well, I'm way too close to the mic. It's good to be back.
Yeah.
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 It's been a while since the last episode of Excelsior that we've done in-house.
Yes, because we did a spell over the internet.
Yeah, we did a couple weeks, but now it's good to actually be behind an actual microphone and
Yeah, it
not
feels
like
good.
my headphones from my iPhone.
Mm-hmm. As far as last week goes, I just want to make this clear. Jack is not dead.
Yeah, no, Jack's not dead.
I realized this, and I was like, I'll put a disclaimer on screen. But then I was like, but most of the people that watch this show listen to it.
Right.
So they won't see anything. Jack's fine. Well, he's in the real world. Is he fine? I don't know. But
Yeah,
at least
bad idea to preface it with "Rest in peace, Jack Martin."
I'm just so used to it, you know? That's just an expression.
I actually saw Jack yesterday, so can confirm, at least up until yesterday,
All right.
he was alive.
Okay, well,
Can't confirm. Today, though, maybe.
this podcast comes out on Friday, so we'll see.
Right, yeah.
But kicking off the show, we're going to follow up what we started last week. A little game called Fire the Cannon.
Oh, yeah. Here we go.
This week is about episode 2. So I figured we would touch on something in the vein of Attack of the Clones.
Okay.
We're talking about Luke Skywalker.
What?
Luke Skywalker.
Why are you putting emphasis on?
Because this Luke has 2 U's in his name.
Am I supposed to be getting some sort of joke here?
Is it a real guy?
This is real.
Okay.
So if you're not familiar, Fire the
Not
Cannon is basically I present tweet-sized recap of a thing that was formerly Star Wars canon, now is no longer. We decide if it's worthy of being included now. So Luke Skywalker. Through cells found in Luke's severed hand from the end of The Empire Strikes Back, the Emperor found and stowed it away alongside with his lightsaber. An insane clone of a Jedi Master has ordered a cloning facility to make him a Skywalker of his own. Luke was trained in the ways of the Jedi just as Luke had been. Eventually, the two face off. It's a light versus dark scenario. But in the end, Luke, Leia, and the former hand to the Emperor, Mara Jade, later will become Mara Jade Skywalker, work together to kill a clone.
Okay.
Is this a genius idea or a horrible idea?
I think the idea of the character, genius.
Okay.
And may I suggest a place to put this character?
Okay.
End of Force Awakens. Luke Skywalker turns around, but he's not Luke Skywalker.
Okay.
He's Luke Skywalker.
Okay.
This sounds like Metal Gear Solid,
Yeah.
like Dragon Ball Super, and Star Wars all mixed into one.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous.
You have Luke Black.
I know this character is kind of infamous as far as the expanded universe goes. I'm not very familiar with it. I haven't read the book he's from.
Yeah.
But I, as someone who enjoys the idea of the Clone Wars, I think Star Wars should visit the idea of clones more, just like on a grand scheme of things, because I think it's an interesting aspect of their universe that they just kind of ignore outside of the actual clones themselves. But with the case of Luke Skywalker, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
It's a little weird.
It is a little weird. It kind of reminds me of that theory, and I don't want to get into theories here, but like of Rey being a clone.
Yeah. If they go that route, I'll be excited.
Yeah, I would be excited too, because I feel like, they did have a whole trilogy basically about clones.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Kaminoans are cloners, right?
Yeah.
So.
And this story, I didn't write down where the base is, where they did clone Luke.
Yeah.
But it is not the Camino. It's a completely different place. So there is another cloning facility that is like decent enough at cloning a Jedi.
Right. We already know that there's one species that just like clone things.
Yeah.
So why can't there be 2?
Yeah, exactly. And there is a lot of gaps to fill between 6 and 7. So if they felt like squeezing this in somewhere, it could be interesting.
It could be done. Yeah.
So are we saying we're gonna fire this cannon, and get rid of it forever, or are we gonna let this in?
Oh, we're letting this in.
We're letting it in.
I would let this in.
Okay. I am confident with giving you the exclusive vote for these things since I'm preparing them. So
Okay.
if you are the one who thinks
Fair enough.
Star Wars mega fan, if you think that this should be canon, I will trust you.
I mean, I wouldn't want to see it as like
A film.
like a film, but yeah, no, it should exist in the canon somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pat, do you have any comment?
I don't think it could be a film either
Okay.
because I picture like Spider-Man 3 Peter Parker, but it's Mark Hamill, and it just looks weird.
All right. So this is officially canon.
Yeah.
All is fun.
We're basically just George Lucas 2.0.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So we'll see how next week treats us. Speaking of George Lucas, last week we had a discussion about George Lucas and his, I won't say distaste, but dissatisfaction with the way his outlines for a sequel trilogy were handled. There's a pretty big story that came out around last recording that I completely forgot about that I would like to talk to you about.
Okay.
Kevin Feige, the man in charge of Marvel, who many say is the most successful Hollywood producer of all time now. And which, like, he's made a lot of money.
Yeah, no, he totally has. Very successful man.
Yes. Kevin Feige is now attached to work on some Star Wars project.
Mm-hmm.
I have a quote from The Hollywood Reporter to preface this discussion, so we have a little bit of info. So from The Hollywood Reporter, quote, "The Marvel Studios chief is going to be developing a Star Wars movie as Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy makes new plans for a wave of projects set in this universe. With the close of the Skywalker saga, Kathy is pursuing a new era in Star Wars storytelling, and knowing what a diehard Kevin is, it made sense for these two extraordinary producers to work on a Star Wars film together." That is a quote of Alan Horn, who is another bigwig at Disney. One knowledgeable source says that Feige has told a major actor that there's a specific role that he would like them to play if this person were interested when they make the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically the gist of The Hollywood Reporter. Information about Kevin Feige. I want to say also, before we dive into this, I don't think you get Kevin Feige for one movie.
No, because I feel like just history shows us otherwise.
Yes.
Like he just spearheaded the entire MCU. So
Yeah, like this is the guy that planned out every little intricacy
yeah.
of the Infinity Saga, how it all culminated 22 films later, 10 years down, like 23 or 24 now. So I think getting Kevin Feige on board is a sign that there's a definite new direction they want to go as far as shifting
Mhm.
from what we've seen. Last week we touched on maybe the idea of Star Wars stories shifting over to television, like with Obi-Wan.
Right.
And maybe this Kevin Feige thing is like what the future of the saga films will be.
I mean, we already know that Rian Johnson's working on his own trilogy.
Mhm.
We know that the like David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, they're doing their own trilogy, right?
I think so.
Yeah. So I mean, it makes sense that they're like, seeking out other people for story ideas.
Mhm.
And it jumps out to me that he already has an actor in mind for a specific role.
Mhm.
So that means that there's something cooking
Yeah, for
in
sure.
Kevin Feige's brain right now.
Yeah,
And I don't think we should disturb it. I think we should let it come out.
exactly. Yeah. I did read into this a little bit. I wanted to see what people were thinking about this. Over on Collider, I saw a clip of their show Rule of Two. I'm not sure who the co-host is, but they were pausing that, or they're proposing that Kevin Feige would be adapting George Lucas's original outline, because this news of the Kevin Feige involvement with the Star Wars project came out very close to the breaking of the story that Bob Iger was pretty much like, "Hey, George, sorry."
Yeah. I mean, is this news coming out just from the association of just when these things happened, or because like what would really be the point of Kevin Feige to create like the sequel trilogy all over again?
So I think what it would actually be, since based on our discussion about Lucas's original outline, it was just so wildly different than what we ended up getting,
Okay.
that the speculation that I listened to was saying that maybe set it super far future, you have characters who are like analogs for Han, Luke, and
got it.
Leia,
Okay, yeah.
and you tell George's trilogy outline that he wrote Super far future.
Right. Okay. I mean, I'm not. My first gut reaction is I'm not really that into that.
Okay.
Just because, I feel like George Lucas, his story treatments for however he wanted to end this story is fine in its own right. If he wants to take from that, like beats or characters or something like that, I feel like that's fine. But I would want to see something completely original come out of him, because we know that he can do it, and we know that he can do it really well. I guess we'll never know if he did just kind of rip off of George Lucas,
Right.
because we don't really know what George Lucas wanted.
That's true.
It could be interesting for him to do something different.
I'll say that if it comes to a point where George Lucas comes aboard as, you know how credits on Star Wars, we just saw an episode last night or this past week, story by George Lucas.
Right, yeah.
If he comes on in that role where it's like, this is where I want to go, this is the beats I want to hit with that outline, and Kevin Feige just brings on like some writer he's really confident in, a director he's really good with, I think I'd be excited.
Yeah, no, I mean, let's be honest, like, I'll be excited no matter what.
Yeah.
Like, it's Star Wars.
Right.
You slap the Star Wars like thing on it, and I'm just gonna watch it regardless. But I do agree, like, if they were gonna go that route, they would have to go like 100%,
like far future, far past, something like that.
Yeah, but like if they were gonna take from George's like old treatments, they'd have to bring him in and like really go all out with it.
Yeah, I agree, and I do think if that is the case, that it is going to be that level. But Kevin Feige being like a huge fan and being on a producer level, unlike JJ, who was a huge fan but wanted to rekindle that fire. I think there's still two very different approaches, despite the fact that they're both big fans.
Right.
So I'm interested to see how that turns out.
Totally. I mean, I'm excited.
Yeah. Pat.
Yeah,
Both of us worked on a Marvel show.
we did. Yeah,
You're confident in Kevin Feige, are you not?
yeah. I will die for Kevin Feige, and I've been doing a little bit of research. That's why it took me a second. There's a list of MCU characters that people are thinking is who Kevin Feige wants to bring along in the Star Wars project.
Yeah.
Chris Evans is on this list, and I'm all in on that.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I want to dive into that too. I want each of us to bring a Marvel character, because like that's the easiest thing to draw from. If he has a character in mind after all these Marvel actors he's worked with, it's probably gonna be one of them. As someone who's not super into Star Wars,
Yeah.
and is 50-50 on the recent films, I'd say, right?
Yeah. I liked The Force Awakens.
Okay. Does the idea of Kevin Feige getting involved make you more excited for the future of Star Wars?
It definitely does. Because, I mean, my biggest beef with the new trilogy is that they switched up from J.J. Abrams to Rian Johnson. And if it's someone like Kevin Feige involved, I know that he's going to do everything he can to keep it as consistent as possible and keep the characters like in line, I guess, with how I believe they'd be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I definitely have a lot more faith in it if Feige's involved.
Yeah. It is worth saying, too, that I know some people aren't in love with this idea, just because the Marvel formula is very much a thing. We dove into that on Excelsior. And while I do think Marvel can get samey, I think that there's an unarguable level of quality you get from them that still gives directors some room to flex, but it would not be anywhere near the level of creative influence that both JJ and Ryan both had for their films.
Yeah, I mean, and let's be honest, like there's a level of sameness to every Star Wars movie too.
Yeah,
and
they rhyme.
They do rhyme. Yeah, I mean, and Kevin Feige's gonna have to work within that as well.
Yeah, I'm more confident than not about this.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I mean, he has a very far-reaching vision, so I think that'll serve the franchise well.
By the way, I hate to take away from the points, but Kurt Russell is also on this list, and I'd love to see Kurt Russell in Star Wars.
Very cool.
Yeah,
that'd be a nice pick. What about you? Who do you think out of the Marvel?
Ooh, out of the Marvel universe?
Yeah.
Gee. Probably like Paul Rudd. I want to see something like that.
I want to see Paul Rudd play like an alien or something.
Yeah, or just like, I don't know, like a really apathetic scoundrel or something like that.
I could see him do that.
Yeah.
That'd be very cool.
But an alien would be cool too. He'd be funny.
You know who I know is a ginormous fan of Star Wars that I would be kind of excited to see lead, not maybe some trilogy, maybe some like Old Republic sort of thing, because I like her, and I think she's a very good performer. Brie Larson.
Okay, yeah.
She loves Star Wars.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she's
So-
a huge Star Wars fan.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder, how do you envision her in the Star Wars?
I could see her in a similar role to Luke Skywalker, where we get introduced to the Old Republic through her as sort of like a fresh face in this world. And then by the end of the Old Republic, because we don't have Old Republic canon that much.
Nope.
By the end of it, maybe she's this like legendary Jedi or person who sparked some new ideas in the Jedi Order, which lasted until the prequels.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen Captain Marvel, so to be honest with you, I'm not super familiar with Brie Larson as an
Yeah,
actress.
she's a badass in that, so she could pull off that at least.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know that she is a badass.
Yeah.
So, her in any sort of, like, Jedi, her as a Jedi would be cool.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
What's up?
So if this trilogy that's about to end, if this results in Rey staying as a character, do you think that role could exist for Brie Larson, or do you think it's already occupied in the universe?
I think there's room.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think Star Wars, for me at least, from my perspective, it's so much about the ensemble, where even if there is, you got the bounty hunter, you got the alien, you got the robot, droid, sorry. You got, you have those people that you fill in. I feel like there's, for this trilogy, for the original trilogy, for the sequel trilogy, there are defined roles that are filled by, like, the main characters of each trilogy. So I think it'd be cool.
Definitely.
We did touch earlier on filling the gap between 6 and 7.
Yeah, we did.
There's another gap that's going to be filled.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Okay. If you are, I'll be impressed. This past weekend was New York Comic Con.
Okay.
And at New York Comic Con, we got 2 announcements
Okay.
about 2 new ongoing series
All right.
that are going to flesh out the gap between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi.
That's the one I was thinking about.
Okay. So Charles Soule, who we've talked about before, he wrote Vader, he's writing the Kylo Ren origin story, is going to be writing Star Wars #1. Comes out next year. It's going to fill the gap between Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and that's a direct follow-up to the current ongoing Star Wars comic, which is now titled Empire Ascendant, which led right into the beginning of Strikes Back.
Okay, so retroactively titled?
Yes.
Okay.
Like the collection of that run
Got it.
is Empire Ascendant, which that run is concluding this December, and we're starting off with the new Star Wars #1 in January. The artist is also Jesus Sai, I believe.
I don't know who that is.
I believe they also worked with Charles Soule in the past.
Okay.
So good art is what you got to know.
I mean, I saw the panel that's been floating around on social media
Mm-hmm.
from Vader #1, Star Wars #1, like the new one.
Describe it for the audience
Okay.
and for me because I didn't see it.
You didn't see it?
No.
Oh, okay. So this is why it was in my head. There's like a panel of. It starts off like in Cloud City, apparently.
Okay.
Right at the end of Empire Strikes Back, where Vader and Luke are fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And the panel is of Luke's hand getting cut off and falling into the abyss, like in Cloud City. And then it's just like, that's it.
Oh, that's cool.
But I mean that's apparently like where it starts.
Oh, nice. So it's
yeah.
like a cool depiction of it then?
Yeah, it's a very, very cool depiction of
That's
it. Like
awesome.
it's like multiple panels of his hand falling and like slowly like releasing a lightsaber as it drops. It's very cool.
That's
That could be the beginning of Luke. Or
It
how do
could.
you
Yeah, it could
pronounce
be,
that?
That's how it started.
Yeah.
That's how it started, man. We
It
could
could
get
be,
Luke
yeah.
again. But yeah, I haven't read many Star Wars comics. We talked before. I read Vader Volume 1.
Uh-huh.
But this is interesting to me because I feel like there's a much larger gap between 5 and 6 than there is 4 and 5 as far as the character growth.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously there's the deleted scene from Return of the Jedi where Luke is in the cave making his lightsaber on Tatooine.
Yep.
But I don't think that counts as canon. So I'd love to see Charles Soule like tell a story of Luke becoming the Jedi we see at the beginning of Return.
Right.
I think that's some very interesting ground to cover. Also Leia and Lando, their adventures.
Yeah. In canon, you might have to remind me, but between episode 4 and 5, that was a year, right?
I am not too sure on that.
Okay. So I know that like between either 4 and 5 or 5 and 6, it's a year, and then the other's like 3 years. I'm not sure if I'm getting them swapped.
Okay.
But I mean, it's very interesting.
I mean, my immediate guess, because of the jump in Luke's character, would be the 3-year gap is between 5 and 6.
Right, yeah.
But if Han's in carbonite for 3 years, that's rough.
Right, that's why I'm thinking maybe it isn't.
Yeah.
But I know that, like, when you go by, like, the years of, like, after the Battle of Yavin or whatever, there is a canon answer for those.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Does he feel himself in the carbonite? Or is that kind of like a...
I think he's just, like, in a... I always think of it as a medically induced coma.
That's what I thought, too.
You know?
Yeah.
And when he wakes up, it's just like, what year is it?
It'd be really bad if he was awake the whole time.
Oh, that'd be horrible.
Had like an itch.
I'm thinking of the Family Guy.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier, actually.
Yeah.
When Peter like farts his way out of the carbonite.
Sorry.
What else is interesting, though, from this New York Comic-Con news? Vader #1. We have a new run of Darth Vader, which sounds incredible. I'm so in for this.
Okay, I didn't know about this, so you have to educate me.
Okay,
please.
so Greg Pak and Raphael Ienco are going to be exploring Vader's rejection by Luke at the end of Empire.
Interesting.
Right, I will go on.
Very interesting.
So at the end of Empire, because of that rejection, it fuels this path of revenge in Vader, and he goes after everyone who hid and corrupted his son.
That's crazy.
That sounds amazing,
That
right?
sounds awesome.
I'm so in for that. That sounds so cool.
That sounds so cool.
Mm-hmm. It's also going to explore parts of Vader's past and be very introspective for the character, which is something I think we don't get enough of, at least as far as I'm familiar. I haven't read the rest of that Charles Soule Vader run.
Right.
But there's that great scene in Volume 1 where Vader meets Boba Fett, and he's like asking him about this rebel that blew up the Death Star, and he's like, "You get anything on him?" You're like, "You find anything on him?" And Boba Fett's just like, "I just got a name, Skywalker." And then that's when Vader figures it out. I love that panel. If you haven't seen it, please look it up. But yeah, just more of this like exploring Vader as like a person and not this machine of a villain. All about that.
I mean, I'm trying to think of when we leave Vader in Empire Strikes Back, he's like calling to Luke, right? Through the Force. While he's on his capital ship.
Yes. Yeah, because it's Luke when he's like sweating after he gets his arm cut off. You know,
he's
on the ship.
like all messed up.
Yeah, and like, I don't know if Vader says anything to him, but Luke definitely goes like, "Oh, Father," because he can sense him.
Yeah. But I mean, like, I always wondered what happened after that in terms of Vader and Luke.
Yeah.
So like he reveals himself to his son and like makes this big proposition to him and then just gets rejected, like you said.
Yeah.
Like, what does that do to him?
I love that as an idea.
Yeah, what does that do to him?
I can't believe that hasn't been explored yet, honestly.
Yeah.
So I'm in for that day one.
Same, yeah.
Have you guys heard about the like series of fan Vader films?
I'm vaguely familiar with
They're like canon. They're pretty good, but it's just a guy who dumps his money into making these movies because like just the story of Vader, and they're really well produced.
You're talking about Star Wars Theory?
I think it's that guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
He makes really high end.
So is it
short films?
Is it based off of like the canon stories from the comics?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
it's
cool.
based off the EU.
I think they're all his stories,
yeah.
though. So
Okay. Well, that's cool still.
yeah, it is really cool. Definitely look it up.
Well, I'm excited for more Vader.
Yeah.
Vader exploring this fleshed out past of him is going to continue that trend, I'm assuming, because Episode 9 is going to be wrapping everything up. There is rumors floating around the internet right now.
Are there?
Yeah.
Really?
Can you imagine?
Yeah. Who knew?
So we're recording this Monday, Monday, October 7th.
Yeah.
And if you don't remember the leading up to The Last Jedi, the final trailer for that film came out October 10th.
Okay, I didn't know the exact date.
We are due for the final Rise of Skywalker trailer.
We are.
Many people are expecting it to be within the next couple weeks on a Monday, specifically Monday Night Football, because Disney loves that synergy on ESPN.
They love it. Yeah.
Screen Rant is expecting that it's going to be announced ahead of time, because I guess just based on trends, they always hype it up to make it an event. It's like, oh, halftime tonight, make sure you're there, and they usually do it a day in advance. So we haven't heard anything yet about today. So if it does drop today, and you're watching this on Friday, check out the reaction we did
Yeah, no,
at
seriously.
some point earlier this week.
That's right. Yeah, today is Monday, so
Yeah.
it could very feasibly happen.
Yeah. Some insiders don't think it's going to be today because it would have been announced,
Right.
unless they just want to like drop a bomb.
Yeah. So I know they usually open up ticket sales too the same
Same day as the final
the
trailer.
same day. So I feel like in the past I had known about that either like the day of,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, tickets are opening today.
Yeah.
Oh, the trailer is going to come out today.
Mhm.
I did read a theory about this though. October 21st is one of the Mondays. It's not this upcoming Monday, but it's the Monday following that.
Mm-hmm. After Columbus Day.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's Carrie Fisher's birthday.
Oh, okay.
And so there were theories that were swirling around the internet that they would do some sort of
That's interesting.
homage to her in that way.
Okay. That could be cool because,
Yeah.
9 is going to be dealing with wrapping her up, her arc.
Yeah.
So maybe the trailer focuses more on her. I don't know if it would, though. Like,
I don't think it would.
if they're I'm assuming they're very limited with the footage they have of her because they're reusing 7 footage.
Yeah. And 8 footage.
Yeah.
Is there any way that I can offer some NFL insider information?
Sure, you're the
Sure.
sports guy. Here.
Yeah, huge football fan here. Browns and 49ers play tonight. Packers and Lions play next Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Those are 2 games that are going to have big audiences because they're good teams.
Mhm.
The 21st is going to be a blowout game. So I don't know if they'd put a commercial on that.
Did you just say blowout game because it's Patriots and Jets?
Yeah, the Jets are awful.
Hey, I'm a Jets fan. So
I'm sorry for that.
no, it will be a blowout game.
Okay. I mean, like, you got all New England tuned into that still. That's like a pretty chunk of the U.S.
Yeah, I guess so.
So
What a treat, though, if it just came out today.
that'd be so nice.
I wouldn't know.
I'd love that. But that is it for news this week.
Cool.
So that's everything happening in the galaxy at the moment. So we're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, we're going to be discussing and actually ranking this time Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones. We will see you in a second.
Laugh it up, fuzzball.
Welcome back. We are now going to be discussing Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones.
The best Star Wars movie?
So far.
So far. We'll have to
Okay.
find out. No, I'm just
Okay.
kidding.
Quick recap. Pat,
Yeah,
you were not here for The Phantom Menace.
that was not.
Do you have a 3-sentence opinion on The Phantom Menace?
Weird, bad movie.
Okay. That's even shorter than I needed. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's 3 words.
And you are ranking it at number 1 currently?
Am I ranking The Phantom Menace at number 1?
Yes,
Out
like
of-
the both of us.
The
only one we watched so far.
Yeah,
Out of
that's true.
one.
Well, I thought you
Okay.
were mentioning Attack of the Clones
Oh,
too.
not yet. We're about to dive in, though. I guess starting it out how we started last week. The crawl.
Yes.
Much more traditional this time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they were setting a scene for a legitimate, I guess, not like adventure, but we were jumping in the middle of something, and it wasn't this overly complex, needlessly political thing. It was like, hey, there's a vote going on, there's a division in the galaxy, we got to figure this out.
Right. Yeah. I also like how they called Count Dooku mysterious.
Yeah.
That's just something that kind of popped out at me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's still a little in the weeds,
Yeah,
just a little bit.
yeah.
But it makes a lot more sense just starting off the movie because it just kind of gets into Padme's safety, which is
Mhm.
a very easy concept
Yes.
to
Mhm.
grasp like a viewer.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't take multiple viewings like we discussed The Phantom Menace does.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I would agree. The beginning of the movie is pretty seamless right into a conflict.
Definitely. And I will say that this is jumping around a little bit, but we're going to like dissect everything here. Up until Jango Fett escaping Camino, I think this is a good movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that there is some wooden acting, some stilted delivery, but I was entertained and pretty like much enjoying what I was seeing from the chase through Coruscant, Obi-Wan's little journey of mystery with Kamino figuring out the lost planet. Like Palpatine when he showed up, I'm like, yeah, cool. You're doing more Palpatine stuff.
Yep.
Much more in the background this time as far as his ascent. Really just absent for most of the movie, and then it shows up at the end again. But I think the politics definitely took more of a back burner this time around, and they were more engaging to watch.
Definitely. You said that you thought the first half of this movie was good.
Well, technically the first act, but it feels like the first half.
That's
because this movie has bad pacing.
That's what I was about to say. I actually dislike the first half of this movie because I just feel like it's super slow. Like nothing really happens.
Preach.
Yeah, like up until I would say the turning point for me at least is when Anakin and Padme arrive at like the Lars homestead. On Tatooine. Like for me, that's when the movie like actually starts. Because the rest of the time, like half the movie's occupied by this like just like abysmal love story between Anakin and Padme. And like I don't know if we want to get into that right now.
We can.
But
I think similar to Phantom Menace, where it was bogged down by this political arc, this movie's biggest weight against it is this Anakin Padme thing. I will say, similar to Jar Jar last time, I thought they had a couple moments that were pretty cute.
Okay.
So I have specifics for you.
Yeah, please.
Good, like a moment of good chemistry, okay?
Okay.
I liked their back and forth during the picnic. When they were in the field just sitting down and Anakin was talking about his view of the galaxy. And she's like, that's a dictatorship. And he's like, if it needs to happen, that's how it happens.
Right, yeah.
I liked that exchange.
Okay.
Because it was, again, it was talking about politics in a way that wasn't boring or dry, and it set up Anakin's character.
It did, yeah, no, that's true.
And the back and forth between them there was like sort of just actually two people talking to each other of like, I see it this way, she sees it this way, and she's like, oh, are you making fun of me and like my thoughts about things? And he's like, oh, no. I thought that was nice.
Yeah. When he's like, everybody needs to sit down and talk to one another. And she's like, that's what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked that. I liked that moment.
Yeah.
And then later on in the film also, because it was a callback to something that made me roll my eyes earlier, well, not the specific line, but the scene where it's the two of them at the dining table, and he floats that horrible CG pear to her, and then she takes a bite out of nothing. Rewatch it if you missed that. That is horrible.
The piece of the pear like slips off
I
the
know,
actual
it's
fruit
gross.
like into her mouth and it doesn't look real.
It looks
not.
so bad.
I didn't notice that. I'm gonna watch that right now.
Yeah, dude,
Yeah, you
it's
should
bad.
definitely look at it.
It's probably the worst piece of CG we've seen so far, in my opinion, because it just looks like a horrible mesh between real life and CG. And oof.
It's really hard to notice though.
It is.
Unless someone points it out to you.
Yeah. But in that scene, they have a moment where they're talking about, I guess, what it's like for Anakin being a Jedi, and he mentions that like, we went in. He was telling a story, and he's like, we went into aggressive negotiations. And she's like, what's that? And he's like, negotiations with a lightsaber. And then they call back to that later in the film in the arena when stuff's popping off. She runs into the thing, and he's like, I thought you didn't want to start a war. And she said, this isn't a war. It's aggressive negotiation. I was like, all right, they got something going on here.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
Yeah.
There was one moment between the two of them that I didn't necessarily hate. I didn't really like those other moments that you kind of brought up. But when it was right after Anakin kills all the Tusken Raiders, and he's like fixing stuff, and he's like all angry, and he's like, I slaughtered them, whatever, and he's on the ground crying, and she's like comforting him. I feel like that's a really tender moment between the two of them.
Yeah, I sure I can see that. I think Natalie Portman is a very good actor, and as far as I know, I think Hayden Christensen's all right. You know, George Lucas probably isn't a good director. You know, comparing this to the last one, even episode 4 in some places.
Yeah.
But like, I think she did the best with what she had. You know.
Right. I mean, I think this is going to open up a can of worms here, but how much of it do you think is the acting versus just like the actual writing and the dialogue?
I think it's more so the direction.
Okay, so you're taking like a third way.
Yes.
I feel like a lot of it is like the actors like, is this really what I'm supposed to say? Is this really what I'm supposed to do
and
right now?
that falls on George Lucas, because
Yeah.
if he's the one who's directing them and being like, no, say it more like this. It's like, it's like, okay, this is my job. You're my boss. I guess I'll do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of stilted delivery, and I think a lot of that falls on George Lucas, because I've seen Natalie Portman act her way out of a paper bag, you know? Like,
Oh yeah, no, totally.
and even at this stage in her career, you know? So I don't think it's on her. I don't think it's even on being on a green screen set, because that can mess with actors. But they're younger. They were like around the start of this green screen boom in Hollywood, I guess. But yeah, I really do think because of that, it falls on George.
I think that's definitely a part of it.
Mhm.
But I think you really can't overstate. The dialogue's bad. Is basically all I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And again, that falls to George. I think he wrote this.
No, he did write it. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's the script, based on my memory, based on my experience with it last night, I thought the script was more, it was way less moments where I had to like do math in my head about how things were working out, you know?
That's true.
We talked a lot about that with Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
This time, I think there were 2 instances where I had to rewind a second to like pay super close attention to the dialogue and be like, okay, I think I get what you mean. One of those, I can't remember the other. One is when Obi-Wan is on Geonosis talking to, or he's like spying on Count Dooku, talking to Newt Gunray and the other members of the Separatists.
The Techno-Union Army.
Yeah, like whatever that guy was saying, all right? Like they were bankers, they were the tech people.
Yeah.
But it was something with Dooku's discussion about basically the plan of it all, and it was something about like his stance on everything, his worldview of the galaxy at the moment, and I was like, okay, now I get it. But yeah, it was way less moments where I had to actually like fully process everything that was going on and all the implications it had.
Yeah, it was like much more of a digestible movie for sure. I wanted to ask you, what were your thoughts on just like Count Dooku as a villain here? Okay, so let me just preface this with my own opinion. Awesome. But so I just feel like a lot of the villains we saw in the Phantom Menace and then also Attack of the Clones, there really isn't much depth to them at all. Like they kind of just brush over the fact that Dooku is a fallen Jedi, and he offhandedly says like, "Oh, Qui-Gon, your master, like when I trained him."
Yeah,
like that's a huge.
So I liked the scene between him and Obi-Wan when Obi-Wan was restrained.
That's a great scene.
I really enjoyed that. I think Christopher Lee, legend. You know, you bring him in for any antagonist, I think he's gonna kill it. I will say I also think Count Dooku is a little weak, because they don't dive into that, and I do think that is an interesting thing. We talked about Qui-Gon's character last week and how he's kind of a gray Jedi. He's like follows his own path, and Count Dooku says to Obi-Wan, he's like, if he saw this going down, he'd be on my side.
Right.
And I thought that was an interesting dynamic, you know, like the Master's Master and the Master's Apprentice going back and forth. So that was cool, but like Count Dooku for the rest of it just kind of gets like, eh.
Right.
You know what seemed really glazed over? Like Yoda was his master.
Yeah.
And they just say it once.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, like
they
nothing.
never go into him at all.
Yeah, and again, we talked about this before. I'm okay with them just like, this is a thing that happened and this is how it is, and not diving into it, because I do like that mystery. But at this like expense of making an interesting villain, like I think you have to play more there, because the thing is, another moment of like realizing something more in the second watch, when he's talking to Obi-Wan in that scene, he's basically saying what the audience knows to be true of the fact that the Senate's corrupt and there's somebody playing the entire Senate.
Yep.
So I was like, oh, he has a point. Like he's like in the right here as far as being like not on board with the direction of the Senate, wanting to separate. But then a few scenes later, when it's like, I've come back to you, my master, the guy in charge of this whole coup, it's like, oh, so he was just lying?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's funny because like I'm pretty sure that Count Dooku in that scene names Darth Sidious.
He does.
Like he's like, hey man, like this is all being puppeteered by Darth Sidious. Join me. We'll stop this all from happening.
Yeah.
You talked a bit about how Qui-Gon was a gray Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Count Dooku's a little bit of a gray Sith. Helping out the Jedi in a way, telling them what's going on, but also using it as a way to try to manipulate Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I can definitely see that perspective. And from that perspective, I do think he's definitely more interesting than Darth Maul as far as what we saw of him on screen already. But yeah, I feel like he just kind of gets introduced too late to do anything interesting with him, you know?
Yeah.
Because he does show up in the third act, right? Like towards the beginning of the third act.
Right, yeah.
And it's funny that is what sticks out in my head as the beginning of the third act, because I honestly cannot really define where the second act starts, because this movie, we touched on this earlier, does drag in places. Specifically, I think it drags in the middle, because there's a lot of really cool things going on. You have Obi-Wan investigating Kamino. You do have the dry relationship between Anakin and Padme that we're cutting back to also.
Yeah.
But even them on Tatooine, which I do like, it's weird because this time around there isn't pointless wipes to 3 lines of dialogue.
Right.
Wiping again. This time it is a wipe every 2 minutes to a story that we just saw progress a few minutes ago, and I really think that messes with the pace, because if you see Obi-Wan landing on Kamino, talking to these people, being like, I'd like to speak to Jango Fett, wipe. Some story about farm animals,
Yeah.
wipe 2 minutes later, Obi-Wan meets Jango Fett. That goes on for 2 minutes. Wipe again, they're having dinner. Wipe again, Obi-Wan is making his message to the Jedi Council. Like, I feel like you could have condensed Obi-Wan's arc on Kamino into like 1 10-minute section, and then wipe to some sort of thing on the farm in Naboo. When you wipe back, Obi-Wan's leaving, then everything goes down with Jango Fett, and then they fly through space, you know?
Totally, yeah.
And that would have helped so much with the pacing, because I did feel like it was a long, long movie for me. And it's not. It's 220, and that's about as long as a normal blockbuster.
Right. Do you think some of it has to do with just literally, like, the lack of diversity in set pieces?
Are you talking about,
Like, just, like, you're going from, like, white interior Camino to, like, field on Naboo, to white interior Camino to, like, field on Naboo.
Maybe.
And it's like, where are we going with this?
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't feel like it's going anywhere.
I would be very interested to see somebody recut the first half of this film to do basically what I just said, and see if it makes me feel any different about it, because I really think it would.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that just not enough stuff is happening.
Yeah, because we're cutting away so often that we get small little, like, breadcrumbs of a thing.
Right.
And then by the time the culmination of the Camino thing happens, we're, like, getting to we cut back to right before the culmination of Naboo, when Anakin has the nightmare about his mother.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And that did hurt it a lot for me. And that's why when I said, like, as soon as Obi-Wan and Jango Fett, that's when it slows down for me a little bit, because it starts to feel long around there.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I, like, propose a weird analogy to you guys?
Sure.
Does it kind of feel like when, like, a waiter or waitress keeps filling up your water and, like, not letting you finish the water? Like, you just want to have a glass of water, but it just keeps getting filled up. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to see what's going on with Obi-Wan, but it keeps cutting me back over.
Yeah.
Like, okay, there's all this boring stuff. Now all of a sudden Anakin's murdering people.
Yeah.
Like, it just didn't feel full. I agree with what you're saying, is that the cuts happened way too.
Yeah, I definitely think it needed time to breathe for a lot of these arcs.
Yeah.
But the second half of the movie does diversify in its, at least, backgrounds.
Totally.
Environments.
Yeah.
Geonosis, I think, is a pretty cool planet visually.
Yeah.
You know, it's like more of Mars looking
Yeah.
than Tatooine is ever.
It's got cool aliens.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Before we move on from Camino, though, do you like the Camino arc? Because I love that entire mystery, Sifo Dyas, all the...
I think it's cool.
Yeah.
You know, now thinking about it after you made that suggestion, I feel like it could benefit from
Like a recut.
stuff taken out of it, maybe. Like,
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But yes, overall, I think that entire mystery is cool. But and I have a problem with it towards the end, because the Jedi just end up like not even questioning this.
Yeah.
Like they're just like, oh, cool, like this Jedi master like
Made an army.
made an army. We're just gonna go with it and take
Yeah.
it for ourselves.
Yeah, Sifo-Dyas is a weird thing, because, like, I was thinking about it, and then when he said, oh, Sifo-Dyas passed away 10 years ago, Obi-Wan knew who he was, right?
Right.
This movie takes place 10 years after Phantom Menace.
Mm-hmm.
In my head, because of Obi-Wan's instant knowledge of him, could have just been a guy on the council. I was like, is Sifo-Dyas an alias that Qui-Gon had, and Qui-Gon just, like, made this entire army or something?
Oh, yeah.
I looked into this. That's not the case.
No.
Sifo-Dyas was a buddy of Count Dooku that he murdered, I guess. Don't know why he made an army. I'm sure there's an answer in a book or
I
something.
mean, I don't
but
think he made the army,
he's the one who put the order in.
allegedly.
According to Wikipedia, I think at,
Oh,
at
really?
1 a.m. This is what I heard.
Oh,
I
okay,
found
okay,
out
okay.
last night.
Don't listen to me then.
But yeah, I like Camino. I like it as a set piece. I love that it's like an ocean planet. Space raining is like one of my favorite things.
Yeah,
it's a great aesthetic.
It's cool. You ever have you played the new Battlefront game?
I have. It's a good map.
That's the best map.
It's a good map.
It's the best map.
It's a great map in the old Battlefield or Battlefront games as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm. It's just a cool set piece. I love rain in Star Wars. It doesn't happen enough.
No, it doesn't.
How do you feel about Jango Fett?
I think he's just as boring as his son.
Oh, that's a hot take. We're gonna explore more later. That's interesting though.
Yeah, he's in the movie for like screen time. What total? Like 10 minutes, probably.
maybe less.
Probably less.
I mean, do you count the clones? Because it's his face. It's
No,
him.
I don't.
Yeah.
He's supposed to kill Padme right in the beginning of the movie, but he just hires someone to do it.
Yeah. What kind of bounty hunter does
Like
that?
what kind of bounty hunter is that?
Boring. Did you ever play Star Wars Bounty Hunter?
I have not. No.
That's a good game.
Okay. What is it like? What is it on?
It's on. I know it's on PS4 now. I'm pretty sure you can probably get it on Xbox One.
Okay.
Definitely on PC. Basically, it's a Boba Fett game, and you get some cool weapons, and you're just a bounty hunter.
Cool.
I think you go on missions, and you
Yeah.
can like run through a couple cities. It probably looks horrible today, but I had fun using the jetpack and the flamethrower wrist on some
Yeah.
bad dudes.
I mean, Mandalorian bounty hunters, like that entire idea,
Mm-hmm.
so cool.
Definitely.
But they just didn't give enough time to it. I don't
yeah,
think.
Django, I thought was like. I like his involvement with Obi-Wan, and I like that back and forth, that rivalry they have. As far as
That's like the biggest eye roll for me.
Really.
Yeah, it's just like it seems just kind of made up, in a way.
Okay, well, I mean, like, I get a vibe from Django that he just has a history with Jedi. He doesn't like Jedi, you know? Because, like, if he's being hired and being held here, not against his will,
Yeah.
he chose to stay here, he chose to live here,
Right.
and help the Jedi by giving himself to them, pretty much. He just has some, like, sourness to him
Right.
that, again, not very deep, because a lot of the delivery and acting here isn't great, but I liked that was Obi-Wan's thing. I liked seeing Obi-Wan go up against a bounty hunter,
Yeah.
you know?
Did it seem weird to you guys at all that he was like in clean, like brand new armor? It didn't seem like he was as much of a bounty hunter to me. Like Jango Fett, he was like his armor's all scarred up. It's all dirty. From the new Mandalorian trailers, it looks like the new bounty hunter's armor is kind of roughed up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Jango was wearing like new clothes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty common complaint with the prequels in general, that everything looks too clean.
Yeah.
Like,
Obi-Wan's getting blown up literally, and he has no scarring or no dirt on his face. So like,
but just wait until Padme gets scratched and then her entire shirt comes off.
yeah,
You know? That makes sense.
totally. Yeah, George Lucas, man.
Okay, so we talked about Camino, talked about Anakin and Padme. Yeah, like the politics here with Palpatine, I'm glad that it's not a main point of the film.
Yeah.
I still like seeing the moments of him where he does like anything, because Ian McDermott, great actor.
Totally. And I think, perhaps the biggest politics plot point in the entire prequel trilogy like happens
Yeah.
in this movie.
Yeah.
When Palpatine is like basically like anointed Supreme Chancellor. He's
Yes.
given all these like emergency powers and stuff.
And that's another thing where I was, I guess, doing the math in my head, seeing it all connect, looking at the board with all the yarn attached to everything.
Yeah, you're like that meme from
From Always Sunny, yeah.
Yeah.
Realizing he orchestrated everything with Count Dooku and the Trade Federation for some reason just wanting Padme dead. She's not a relevant person anymore. She's a senator, which is like important, but
Yeah.
it seemed like he just had a vendetta against her after the first one.
There are a lot of senators, it seems.
Yeah.
That's a big room that they're all in.
Yeah.
Also, kind of funny that Jar Jar is the one who sets off this whole thing.
I think that's also just clever
Poetry.
too, like knowing it now, seeing everything play out. Palpatine knew.
Yeah.
Jar Jar was like the one who would take over for her. And Jar Jar is impressionable, you know? So he was like, I love that moment when they're in his office and he's like, oh, if only Senator Amidala was here, she would vote for my my escalation to this point.
Yeah.
And
And then he's like, if only there was a senator with the courage to do this.
and they cut to Jar Jar and he's like introspective.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that I like that. I like that entire idea.
Yeah, I mean, I
know it's a meme. It's like, oh, Jar Jar created the Empire, but like, it's. I think it makes sense as far as Palpatine's perspective and the way he plays everybody.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it's interesting. Like, they could have just relegated Jar Jar to like interim senator, and just been like, yeah, no, that's where you go.
Yeah.
Like after all the backlash of Episode 1, but I like how they actually like the decision that Padme makes in canon to appoint Jar Jar as like the senator in her absence. That has real ramifications.
Yeah.
On the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool that, Jar Jar doesn't really play that big of a role in terms of screen time, but
Very important in terms of where we're going.
yeah, super, super important.
Yeah.
I think that's cool.
Me too.
I'd love to see some EU content on Jar Jar after Revenge of the Sith takes place.
I know he has some presence in Clone Wars, right? The series.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
Yeah.
He was in there were a few arcs that involved him.
That's cool.
I did always wonder what happened to Jar Jar, though.
Yeah, like where is he in 4?
Yeah, he doesn't die. We like in 3.
Is he like a devout supporter of the Empire now?
He probably just like retires, gets a pension, goes home. It's like, well, I fumbled the bag on that one. Sorry, guys.
He goes back to the Gungan
He
City.
just fumbles the bag on everything in his
Yeah.
life.
There's a few moments of this film that are visually delicious, I'll say.
Okay.
I don't think the CG... I think the CG is more apparent in this one than it was in The Phantom Menace because digital cameras, more green screen sets, more CG.
Like no miniatures.
Yeah. And I think it looks, on a Blu-ray disc, it looks all right, But it's definitely early 2000s CG.
Yeah.
And I think the moments it shines the best is when it's moving away from the more, again, stilted cinematography, Like I love the tracking shot of Anakin on the speeder when it's playing the Duel of the Fates.
Oh, very cool.
The
Yeah.
silhouette of him against the twin suns. I love that shot so much.
Yep.
One of my favorite parts of the movie, actually, just that entire sequence.
Yeah.
Of him, not like what happens after that, just him driving that speeder. Love that.
There are a lot of cool locales.
Yeah.
The asteroid field.
That's, man, the
seismic charge.
The seismic charge, yeah.
Yeah.
That might be the best bomb in Star Wars. That thing was cool.
That sounds amazing.
Literally from my youth, I was like, this is the coolest sound in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Period.
Pat, can you check? I think that sound got them an Oscar.
Wait, really?
I think maybe at least a nomination.
Okay,
I feel like I've heard
good.
this somewhere. Yeah, it's a great sound.
Like
dude.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is really. It is very appealing visually. I'm thinking about all the Coruscant scenes.
Yeah, Coruscant's a great looking place.
Like it's so vivid
Mm-hmm.
and like intricate and very cool.
They got a nomination for it.
That's wild.
They
For
got
just that sound.
for a variety of their noises, but that was included in it. Yes, an Oscar nominated noise sound effects. I don't know the Oscar nominated noises. That's how it's titled.
Okay.
It's worth just looking up that sound.
Yeah,
on YouTube
for sure. The first time I heard someone point it out, I looked it up and I was like, oh man, yeah, they have a point.
Yeah.
Can I also just like mention real quick? You guys are saying like, oh, this the CG. Like, there's some beautiful shots. Do you remember the scene where it was like Mace Windu and Palpatine in Palpatine's office? It literally looked like a hotel rendering. Like, you know, when they upload those like 3D models.
Episode 3 has some bad CG.
Yeah.
I think
it was
most offensive of the entire trilogy in Episode 3. And we will get there because there are some moments. Another thing too that I noticed again on Tatooine that I thought was clever was when Anakin was about to go on that revenge quest on the speeder bike. The silhouette of him talking to Padme, never picked up on this. It could just be me being a dum-dum. In that scene when it's the silhouettes of them against the moisture farm.
Is it like right when he comes back?
Before he leaves.
Oh, before he leaves, okay.
The silhouette, because of his hair, it looks like Darth Vader.
Interesting. Okay, I didn't notice that.
Again, I will throw this up on screen. Listeners, you're missing out. I'll draw it for you just so you have some kind of like idea while we're talking about it.
I'm like, I think I know what you're talking about.
It looks like that. So that's Padme.
Okay.
And that's Anakin looking at her. And because of the ponytail thing he has in the sunlight, it makes it look like Vader's visor.
That's probably deliberate.
It definitely is because on the I have the 6-film Blu-ray collection.
Uh-huh.
On the front of it, it's young Anakin walking towards the front of the box, I guess.
Oh,
and the shadow he casts is Vader on the side of his house.
That was a teaser poster for Episode 1.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And that shot was not in Episode 1, but having that in my mind and seeing this, I was like, oh, hey, that's cool.
You know, and I don't mean to jump around too much.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm just thinking about Padme and Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
That like really needed to work in the sense where you wanted to. The whole point was to have you feel for Anakin and Padme and how like they have this love that can't be publicized. They can't really do anything about it. But it's just so cringy. Like the entire thing was so cringy.
Like I said,
he like looks at her in ways that are like very questionable, honestly.
I love that one of the first moments they're just like talking or something. She's like, "Don't look at me that way."
Literally, yeah.
It's a weird delivery. It's like, yeah, I totally get what you're saying. He looks at her in some weird ways.
He's a creep.
Yeah, he's very creepy. And a lot of this could have been George. This could have been saying like, "Oh, say it like darker," you know?
Yeah.
But
he's got creep elements to him, man. He's just looking at girls. He's got that one ponytail that's longer than the rest of his hair.
Yeah.
By the way, I just looked up that image. That's kind of spooky. It does look like Vader's helmet.
Yeah, because we do end up with Anakin and Padme getting married.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, there are a couple moments I liked where I thought they had a genuine moment together where it made it easier for me at the point when they're going into the stadium at the end.
Yeah.
That discussion minus what Padme says.
Yeah, it's so rigid.
Yes. If you're forgetting, the line is, "I truly, deeply love you," and doesn't hit, but you know it does hit. That John Williams score. I love the love theme from this movie. It is so good, and it does more for their relationship than the writing did at all.
Yeah, totally. I mean, even like that shot is iconic too.
Oh yeah,
of them just like kissing as they're
going
into the arena, and that music swelling.
Mm-hmm. I love that track so much.
What a Star Wars moment, right?
Yeah.
Did you guys think it was dumb what Anakin said before they went out? Like to kick off that scene, he was like, "Don't be scared." That's the time to be scared. Is when you're being charioted to death.
I mean, if you're prepared for it, you know what's coming. It's like, there's not much I can do, you know.
I think a lot of the things that Anakin says in this movie are dumb.
Yeah, no, you're right. Sand.
Yeah.
We didn't touch on sand.
No, sand.
We don't need to talk about that. You've heard enough people talk about that line.
My favorite, "I'm haunted by the kiss that you should never have given me."
Yeah, that was horrible.
What a horrible line.
Man. Despite all of this, though, I did enjoy most of this. I I like 80% like this movie.
Yeah.
I don't have a nostalgia for it like I do with Phantom Menace. Because Phantom Menace did give me warm feelings, you know, because I watched that one probably the most of the prequels as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
This one, though, I was like more invested in what was happening because it was more ground level.
Yeah.
But the climax, the final battle.
Yeah, we need to talk about that.
Final battle's pretty cool.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
mean,
Mace Windu showing up.
Mace Windu showing up, that's a moment right there.
Yeah, that's real good.
When he like ignites the lightsaber right on his
Purple.
neck, and it's purple, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Only one to have purple lightsaber.
You know the story, right?
Well, he just wanted one, right?
Yeah, Sam Jackson was like talking to George Lucas, and they're like, "Oh, so you're gonna walk out and you're gonna pull your lightsaber out against his throat?" And he's like, "Can it be purple?" And he's like, "Sure."
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's Sam Jackson. You
Yeah,
know?
what are you gonna say? No.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It did seem like, and I've always thought this. It kind of seems just like a cluster,
Yeah.
like a mess,
Yeah.
just a little bit.
The finale, everything from like the weird beasts, which like I think it's a nice homage, you know, to old Gladiator films. Like I think the Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Padme fighting off these monsters for a bit. It's a cool idea, you know. Like we haven't seen anything like that in the rest of these movies, so I give it that.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a cool premise, but
And then seeing the Jedi Order come together, again, we haven't seen anything like that in these movies so far. Much smaller of a force than I remember. By the end, there's maybe like 10 people standing in that circle, you know?
yeah.
I was about to say, how many of them do you think got killed? Because it looked like a good amount showed
It
up.
looked like at least like half died.
I'd say like 75% bit it.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with you, Pat, because that first scene where like every Jedi in the audience like ignites their lightsabers.
Yeah.
There was a ton of them, and then there was like maybe 15.
Yeah.
Number one, like, how did they all get there without anyone noticing?
They bought tickets.
Yeah, they bought tickets, I guess.
No, I get that. And I don't, as cool as that is, as cool as an idea that is, I think the arrival of the clones and that whole battle between the clones and the droids,
Mhm.
way cooler than the Jedi thing.
Oh yeah, way cooler.
Which is weird because like the Jedi showing up being the Jedi Order, I feel like should be the highlight over a clone army.
Mm-hmm.
But man, I love clones. The clone troopers. I love I just love how they look. I love everything about the clone troopers. I think they're awesome. Probably a nostalgia thing, but like the clones are my favorite troopers out of everything in the series. Seeing that combat on that battlefield, we don't get a lot of it, but seeing the clones face off against those droids, all that chaos, all that robotic carnage, very, very good set piece.
Totally. I always liked the droid like ships. I thought they were just very like uniquely designed.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like the actual like circle
The mini Death
ones,
Stars.
like the mini Death Stars,
Yeah.
but also specifically the ones with like the two really big wheels.
Yeah.
I don't know why the wheels are so big,
I don't know.
but they look cool.
Yeah. I think the droid army has more interesting moments in this one than they did before, and I think that they do in the future. But yeah, the clones just showing up and kicking ass. It's like, oh, so cool. I love that entire sequence.
Yeah.
Seeing Yoda be a commander is fun.
Yeah.
You know, just
Around
him showing
the
up.
survivors, a perimeter create.
Yeah, that line always stands out to me. It's like, you didn't need that.
Nope.
You didn't need to make it that way. The finale, though. The finale.
The finale.
The showdown, Anakin and Obi-Wan against Count Dooku. Yoda shows up, saves the day. What do you think about this fight? Because previously we saw the Duel of Fates, very choreographed, very flippy dippy,
Mm-hmm.
lots of really cool moments, lots of intense, visceral combat. Nothing really like up close, but it's still very flashy.
Yeah.
Here, this battle I think is much more in tune with the original trilogy, as far as a slow-paced, mostly focused on the dialogue exchange between the hero and the villain here. And then it relies a lot on the Force,
Mm-hmm.
which it's strange that this is the climax of the film when we just had that really visceral clone attack, you know?
Yeah, totally.
And then we land here, and it's not even cutting back and forth like the finale of Phantom Menace. It's just
yeah, that's it.
you got the clones, now you get the lightsaber fight, then we wrap things up.
Yeah.
What did you think about that?
So, I really like Anakin versus Count Dooku.
Mhm.
I think that's cool. But the moment that Yoda shows up, it like absolutely loses me
Really?
because I don't want to see Yoda flip around like that with a lightsaber, and I never really liked that, to be honest.
I'm kind of indifferent on it.
Okay.
I think having Yoda be this being that just uses the Force as his main thing is kind of cooler. I love that he's able to sort of concentrate the Sith lightning.
Yeah.
And he's like, you don't know everything, what you think you know. I think that's cool, and that's very Yoda in his character. But when Duke is like, we're too good at the Force, so clearly we need to have a lightsaber fight. It's like, all right,
Yeah.
we didn't need this. You could have just ran off and made the thing fall, and then we could have called it a day.
Seriously, I mean, I feel like this entire, like the finale here, where all the lightsaber fights, there were really only two, but whatever.
Yeah.
It just feels a little shoehorned in there. It happens like right at the end of the movie.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way overall about Dooku
Yeah.
that I mentioned earlier.
Right.
But like, yeah, because if we take him as the guy that's introduced third act,
Yeah.
he's sort of an antagonist, fill in that rule of two Sith role, and then he just shows up at the end for a little clash. Yeah, you're right.
It almost feels like George Lucas was like, "Oh, we had all these lightsabers, but we didn't see any of them fight with one." You know, like
Yeah.
there was no. I don't know. It just seemed like he just wanted a lightsaber fight just because he had to.
Yeah.
If that was the case, then why did he have like Yoda and Dooku play catch with like stuff around the battleground?
See, that was interesting though, because I think again that's another thing in this movie that's new that we haven't seen in this franchise before, and I would have been fine if we just cut it there, you know. But again, like a lot of this movie, there are parts that drag, and the finale being a slow-paced lightsaber duel after the arena, after the clones, it just like makes you cool down a little earlier than we should
Yeah, I agree.
for how much of the movie's left. You know?
Oh yeah, totally.
I think that scene could have. Oh, I was really close to the mic there. I think it could have been like faster, because like it was like Dooku looks over, screen cuts to a thing, then he pulls it, and then it flies, and then Yoda catches it, and then Dooku's like, "Oh, there's another thing." It was like this weird like, try this. No, how about that?
Yeah,
Like
he didn't need to do it the third time.
yeah.
Count Dooku's his ship though,
Mhm.
very cool.
Yeah.
It's like powered on solar energy,
Yeah.
it seems, or something like that.
So the place we end off, we get a tease of the Death Star earlier, first time.
True. Yeah.
Dooku dips out to deliver that to his master, which is Sidious. And then we get the resolution of the Anakin Padme relationship. We see that they get married in secret, except for whoever officiated it, R2 and 3PO. They all saw that happens. And 3PO, I believe, is in Padme's care now, right? He's an assistant to her.
You know, it's unclear because he was once he was on the Lars homestead, and then
Yeah,
he kind
but-
of just like came along.
Yeah. So I'm not sure how that hashes out.
I mean, I know he keeps calling Anakin like master.
Yeah. Which I like.
Yeah.
I think it's cool that he made 3PO.
Right.
We never really brought that up.
That's true. Yeah.
Can I ask you guys a weird question about Count Dooku?
Sure.
Not weird, but
Yeah.
so his master is Darth Sidious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is he not, like you guys mentioned earlier, that he's like a gray Sith Lord? Is he not a Sith Lord because he doesn't have the Darth in front of him? He's just Count Dooku.
He actually.
Yeah, he does have a Sith name
Oh,
that they
really?
mention in the film. You really would have had no clue unless you were following the math of like who answers to who. But I believe, who is it that calls him it?
I didn't know it was in the movie, to be honest. with you.
Okay. There's somebody who says, "My master, Darth Tyrannus."
And that's Count Dooku?
Yes.
Okay.
Um,
Is Count Dooku just like what his name was when he was a Jedi? So everyone
I
calls
guess
him that?
I guess that was just his political
Well, yeah,
rank or something.
he's like leader of the Separatists.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you have any more closing thoughts about Attack of the Clones that you want to touch on before we wrap things up?
I'm gonna say that in terms of like what this movie does for me, and this in the larger story so far, doesn't really do it for me.
Okay.
I have to be honest.
Yeah, I think there's some interesting things as far as the progression and fleshing out of the Jedi go, because you do see a lot of back and forth between Yoda and Mace Windu,
Mm-hmm.
which I like that friendship, I guess. You see Obi-Wan. I really do like his arc of Camino, and looking through the archives, seeing there's nothing there,
Mm-hmm.
going to Yoda for guidance. Again, a few cool moments visually, some cool set pieces, but the Anakin Padme relationship for the most part does bog it down. And yeah, I do think that there is a pretty alright movie in here. It's just choppy and all over the place.
I would agree with that, yeah.
Also, I was talking to Pat about this earlier. It's funny that Sidious is like not supposed to be some crazy reveal, you know, but like they don't really do much to hide it. Like, do I look a little different right now than I did a moment ago?
Just the slightest bit different.
For listeners, I put my hood up, but you can see like a third of his face.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's really supposed to be that.
I know, because like we know going in, because these came so far after the original trilogy, but like that just stood out to me as something silly.
I mean, like even in the Phantom Menace, it's like heavily implied.
Yeah.
That like they're the same person.
Also, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go for it.
But when he's like Chancellor Palpatine, his right hand man has horns. Like it's evident that they're evil. He's got those horns coming down here and the ones going up there. It's
that's true.
Yeah.
Some imagery.
I would say that like this movie does try to do a lot in terms of progressing the plot, and it does.
Yes.
But I don't think it does it very well.
Yeah, I
And
can
that's-
see that.
And that's where I'm gonna stand on it.
Sure, because they do focus a lot of the progression on the Anakin Padme thing.
Yeah. If you take away all the acting, you literally take away all the movie. You just read it, like it works.
Okay.
And like I feel like the story is compelling, but the performances are not.
Okay. I think I'm gonna land around a similar place as you with this. Like, I think there's some entertaining things. There's some Star Warsiness to it that I enjoy. I think the clone stuff's cool, like I said, but
And again, that nostalgia factor too.
yeah, it's not a strong for me with this one, but I do think that it's my favorite part, I guess, grand scheme, is seeing the gears turn for Palpatine.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm really coming to with both of these as far as my impact, lasting impact, is like, okay, big takeaway, all of this happened so Palpatine can get more power.
Yeah.
So that's fun. It's time to rank it, though. I don't need to pull my phone out because I just know my ranking.
Same.
Would you like to go first?
Sure. Where do I start?
You can start at the bottom.
Okay. So since we've only watched 2 films so far, at number 2, I'm ranking Attack of the Clones.
Mm-hmm.
And at number 1, I'm going to rank The Phantom Menace.
Very nice. Pat, what about you?
number 2, The Phantom Menace. Number 1, Attack of the Clones.
I am also number 2, Phantom Menace. Number 1, Attack of the Clones.
Okay. Wait, so this is, you like the Attack of the Clones better?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Because I'll say with Phantom Menace, love Darth Maul, love Qui-Gon. There's some good nostalgia there. This one, I think, has more interesting things happening most of the time,
Fair enough.
where I could give it a little bump. So that's where I stand on everything.
All right, cool. Yeah.
Well,
I just like the arena scene.
yeah,
That's
fun.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, that's a good point. So that wraps up episode 2 and Jedi Nights episode 2. Mike, is there anything you'd like to plug? Anything you want to shout out? Twitter account?
Yeah, sure. If you want to follow me on Twitter, at Mike P. Connors.
All right, cool. Pat, what about you?
If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at the PMoron.
Very nice. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at Chris N. Buckley. Also, if you're watching this video, you're on youtube.com/joyclicks, where we have this as well as other content pretty regularly. Patreon.com/joyclicks if you'd like to sponsor the show. Any other podcasts we do, get a message read on air. There's an option for that. So there's some exciting things happening.
Do you have tiers on this Patreon?
I do. There is a $1 tier where you get a special thank you note. There's a $2 tier where you get early access to podcasts like this one.
Whoa.
as well as some cool exclusives behind the scenes stuff
Nice.
that you'll get whenever they get dished out. The cap, though, the highest tier you can get, there's 10 slots open for this. $50. You sponsor every show for the month. You get your name read during the episode. And a little blurb.
I will personally write you a note and send it to your house.
You give us $100 a month. Whoever you have a problem with, I'll go fight them for you for your honor.
$150 a month, I'll do the same.
$200, we're all going.
For that, find them on Venmo. For supporting the show, patreon.com/joyflix. But that's going to do it for the episode. Thank you for joining me, Mike.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is great.
Thanks for sticking through Star Wars, Pat.
I'd love to be back. So it's cool.
And until next time, we're fine. Everything's fine. How are you?
General Kenobi.